I had the chance to go ahead and test out the Alpha6300 right now. I just went ahead and shot a performance. The first thing I noticed about the camera is that it works really well, but the one hiccup that I had is that my card started to buffer, and it was really frustrating. And you know, I'm shooting with the Transcend 95 megabytes per second or 60 megabytes per second right card, and what ended up happening was I was firing the camera during the performance, and I needed to change the setting, like the quality, but the card is like constantly writing, and so it was really difficult to change any settings while I'm shooting because the performance is happening and I can't quickly adjust. So as far as a issue this camera has, if you want to use it for sports, the advantage a DSLR has right now compared to like a 7D is that you can quickly change your settings on the fly if you need to, but this is one little flaw in the camera. But overall, the performance right now for this first shoot I did was not too bad. We're gonna have to go ahead and see how the pictures are gonna come out on the computer. So I'm gonna shoot another performance in just a little bit here, and I'll tell you about my experience from that. So first thing I noticed already using the camera, my hand hurts. So if you have really big hands, trying to grip this with a large 70-200 lens over time is going to fatigue you. So you're going to need some sort of battery grip solution in order to use this camera well. But again, I'm still fine tuning the settings. I experienced another situation where I wanted to change the setting of the camera. For example, I wanted to switch to face detect and see how that functioned, but I couldn't do it because the camera was buffering to the card, and so I couldn't change unless I was going to miss 10-15 seconds of the action. So for this next group that's going up, I'm going to try the face detect and also wide on the area of focus. So I'm going to basically let the camera figure out the focus based on the person's face and see if it tracks them. So that performance you just saw that we just shot, one thing I noticed with the settings that I was using, it worked pretty well. The camera was able to track and find the focus on the people's faces, but when you notice that there's actually people on the other side of the stage across from the area, the camera will sometimes find focus on the people on the opposite side of the bleachers. and so that can be a problem for the camera. So the only time that focus really works well is if you can really zoom in and close in on a person. But if you can't really zone in on a person with your zoom lens, then using facial recognition to track someone down may not be the best bet. But overall, it did work well if I can isolate the subject with the zoom. So right now, I'm going to be recording video, 4K, 24 frames per second. I'm going to have continuous focus on, so we're going to see how the camera does on its own. So, but yeah, we're going to test out the 4K right now and the autofocus features of the camera. I used the face tracking for that recording that I just did. I expected the results that I got. The focusing was pretty good. Honestly, I was very surprised at how well the camera was focusing on the people by using continuous autofocus. Just again, when you're using the face tracking, just be careful on the faces that are there. The camera will start to pick up the people that are further away if it sees another face. The next thing I'm going to test out right now with this next group is the high frame rate slow motion at 120 frames per second at 1080p, and we'll see how that goes. Welcome back. I hope you really enjoyed that real-world review video of the camera, showing you the photography abilities and even the video capabilities of that camera. Again, I want to reiterate some challenges with this really wonderful camera that I had the opportunity to shoot with the other day. Is the grip is a bit small, so whatever additional attachments you can get on the camera is going to make a big difference. If you do have big hands, holding the camera for long periods of time will affect you and fatigue you if you're constantly shooting. Now, if you're starting to shoot very differently where you don't even put your eye up to here, then of course you'll be a little bit more comfortable. But if you're kind of shooting at that old style where you put it up to your eye, then you're going to start noticing that fatigue over time. So my pinky hangs out when I use the camera, so it's a little bit awkward, the positioning for it. Another issue is the card buffer. I know I mentioned that in the main part of the video. I am probably going to go ahead and pick up a much faster SD card. I do want to see how well it can kind of off-write all those photos. That buffer issue was a problem. It is a real problem. It may not be an issue for those of you who just do portraits or don't require a lot of high frame rate or high burst, but you want to have that ability when it does happen. It doesn't mean you're going to be a bad photographer. The camera's bad that it doesn't do that. It just means that when that moment happens and you're on a buffer, it could be the difference between getting the photo that you need. So when I compared it to a 7D Mark II, sort of what I was talking about, I didn't really have that issue while I was shooting with the camera. Well, this is actually the 5D Mark III, but with a 7D Mark II, I never really had that issue with the buffer because that card will just offload raw files like nobody's business. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up a new card to see if that helps. Video, when I checked the footage from the video, I did record it handheld. You could notice the jitter and the rolling shutter from the camera at 4K. It is noticeable, but again, I was shooting handheld. Obviously with the tripod, it'd be a different scenario. So that is something to keep in mind. Another thing is I really liked the autofocus, the continuous autofocus on the camera was phenomenal, to say the least. Now, if I did have a tripod, it'd be a different experience, but the way it was locking onto faces and quickly focusing and changing its focus when it needed to, I was amazed. And the footage right now, the camera recording right now is the Alpha-6300, and I don't know if it's locking onto my face. I guess it's out. I'm gonna walk closer to the camera right now and see if it adjusts, and I'm gonna back out. But the camera really did a solid job of tracking the people. Now, I did mention again, if there are people behind them, if you can't isolate the zone, your focus, you are going to have a situation where their focus will jump to the people behind them. So the advantage for the facial autofocus is really in a situation where you just want to focus on a face. So just keep that in mind. If there's a lot of different faces, it is going to have some issues, some slight issues, but the camera is pretty damn smart. Image quality from the photos, I only have JPEGs. I couldn't really shoot in RAW, and also there's no RAW processing yet available on Lightroom or Photoshop. But what I am noticing is that I did some comparisons with the 7D Mark II files, and I'm slightly liking the 7D Mark II files a little bit more than this Sony Alpha-6300. The files on the 7D Mark II, when it nails the focus, looks a little crisper and cleaner, but that could just be the fact that there's still no RAW files available on the camera. So I'm not gonna really talk about image quality yet, because once that RAW processing is out, I'll start looking at that. But overall, the experience, the overall use of the camera, I think it's really great. The amount of technology and features they pack into a small camera. This is the 6000 here because I'm using the 6300, but I am just shocked by the ability of the camera. I am gonna say in terms of autofocusing, I do still kind of like the DSLR feel of the cameras, so I'm so used to it, but I can see someone starting to move away and really giving the 6000 series line of cameras an opportunity to test it out. One thing I am gonna mention though is that you really are gonna need a 2.8 aperture lens. You're gonna want the G Master 70-200 f2.8 lens if you wanna shoot in these environments. My settings were, I was really testing the high ISO performance on these photos. I was at 8000 ISO, 12800 ISO, shutter speed of 400, f4. So it was really pushing that ISO value on the camera, and the files, they don't look as good as you would like them to be. So do keep your expectations about image quality, about where you would expect them for APS-C. Don't assume you're gonna get full frame like image quality. I think for sure, if you had a budget challenge or whatever, stick with, I'm just gonna give you a quick judgment call right now. If you do make a living with your Canon DSLR, Nikon DSLR, doing sports pictures and what have not, with the 7D Mark II or 5D Mark III or D750 or whatever, stick with those systems. That's my recommendation, just off the top of my head. Sony is great. I think it's there, but I think they need to put the autofocus abilities inside of a full frame camera. If they put that in the Sony A7 future model, then I really think that we will have a contender. So I'm thinking Sony's already got this in the back of their mind. Their next Sony A7 camera is definitely going to have some I'm hoping they're going to have some better autofocusing capabilities in those cameras and higher frame rate. But once that happens, I think that will be the time to start looking at, the sports individuals can start looking at the A7 series line of cameras as a small portable compact camera. By the way, this is really light. This looks heavy, but it's really light compared to holding a 5D Mark III with a 70-200 f4. The weight difference is substantial between these two bodies. And so having this over this has some benefits. So something to keep in mind. But I mean, I would still prefer shooting with the DSLR, although there's a lot to like about this camera, and we're gonna find more about it. Hey guys, I don't know everything. If you have any questions or comments about the camera, go ahead and post them down below, or even questions about the review. If you are interested in seeing more reviews and videos about the Alpha 6300, go ahead and subscribe to follow along with me. If you did really like this video, go ahead and give it a like. I would really appreciate it. It helps motivate me in producing more content for you and helps get more visibility for my videos. And with that said, I'm your host, that one camera guy, and I'll see you on the next video. Now, if you did miss my last video, you can go ahead and find it somewhere over here or up there with the link. And I think I did an unboxing video of this camera. I'll see you later. Bye.